Guys, I want to do a video weekly news this week just to kind of go over some important topics and issues in the stages, and to also mention that I extended the date on the quiz. Again, this starting on a Friday is just it still messes me up. So I realized that. I thought, when I looked at how many students are in the class and how many have taken the quiz so far, I'm missing some. So please, you need to go ahead and prepare to take quiz 2. We are down to like 3 weeks out, so it goes so fast with these many semesters. Also want to state that I went ahead and uploaded the last quiz. I'm not quiz. Don't panic on me. The last critical thinking exercise. So for those of you who want to jump ahead, try to knock that out. It also gives you a purpose for your reading. So look at the questions, print the questions out, and as you read, you can already start to formulate your responses. And again, make sure that you respond to all of the questions and all part of the questions. That gives me an idea that you are understanding the material and you're able to take what you're reading and to translate that into your own words. And think, if someone asked you these questions, like, how would you repeat that information? So it gives you an opportunity to put it in your own words. So the third critical thinking exercise is open, and I will probably this weekend work on uploading the last quiz. So again, it does go fast. So here are some things I want to discuss with you guys with the chapters in the last quiz, chapters 7 through 12. And so in this quiz, he went through early childhood, which was your readings in chapter 7, 8, and then middle, kind of late childhood, and then into adolescence. So let me kind of just review all of these stages and just to kind of keep some things in mind, because I know some of you are pre-professionals and you're going to possibly be asked these questions someday. And again, you have to think about how you put it in your own words. So what I have done in the past years, when people find out that I teach human growth and development, developmental psychology, or just psychology in general, they ask me questions about their kids. So they will come up and say, my child. And one of the first things that I say is, stop. How old is your child? Because when you think about early childhood, middle, late childhood, and even adolescence, I do compartmentalize each of these stages. So when somebody says my child is 4, I automatically in my mind go to early childhood. I know those ages are 3 to 6, and I already start to go through everything in my head of biological changes that happens from 3 to 6, psychological changes, emotional changes. So all of those cognitive changes, everything that happens. So when somebody says my 4-year-old is not talking, he's not verbalizing as much, I already know cognitively what is going on with 4-year-olds. And in early childhood, language becomes a part of how they communicate. They're learning that language, and they if you've been around children at this age, they're asking questions. They want to know. Their brain is a sponge. They're learning to read, and they need to be read too. That's a big thing, is to read to these kids. They're developing what we call an autobiographical memory. They're starting to, learn a storyline. They're learning how I went to the park yesterday and this is what I did and this is what I saw. They're learning kind of how to put their own biographical world together, so the more stories you read to them, they know what a plot and a storyline. Kids in early childhood grow, they can grow 2 to 3 inches a year, 5 pounds a year. They're starting not to look like young kids, and they're starting to look like humans. They're starting to look like little humans. So we also know within the brain, biologically, gray matter starts to develop. So areas in the brain are starting to change and develop, and that's why they're going to ask you so many questions. The emotional development. Here's where kids have a theory of mind, and they learn about emotions and how not everyone feels the same emotions that they do, and they developed kind of a self, who they are. So that's how we kind of compartmentalize, childhood. If somebody says my child is 8, I know to go straight to middle to late childhood. And I know, again, 2 to 3 inches a year, about 5 pounds a year. Gray matter is starting to develop. The frontal lobe is just developing. And they're starting to learn academics. Kind of think of 6 to 12 is the elementary school years. So you think about the fact they're going into kindergarten at about 5, first grade about 6, second grade at about 7, third grade at about 8. And so besides the physical development, they're getting into sports, they're getting into activities. This affects their development. Their emotions are developing more because now they're learning self-esteem, self-worth, self-confidence. They're trying to internalize that self. So you can see through childhood, the best way to remember the information from childhood is to really break it down into ages. So early childhood, 3 to 6, and then you get into middle to late childhood. I do middle to late. I know your readings had it just middle, but you just don't go through middle childhood and then boom, you're an adolescent. It just doesn't work that way. So I usually think about 6 till about 9 is middle childhood, and then 10 to about 12, 13 is late childhood, because you know that an 11-year-old is going to think different than a child who's 8 or 9. There's too much maturity going on there. Now, adolescence, and you're reading adolescence. We've always thought in research and as researchers that adolescence is more of a transitional period, not so much an exact stage. Just to give you an example of puberty. When people hear adolescence, the mythology out there is that the entire time that you're an adolescent, you're going through puberty, and that's not true. Puberty can end just as fast as it begins. Some people are late starters, some people are early starters, some people need all those years. So adolescence is this transitional period from not being a child anymore, learning not to be a child, and learning how to be an adult. And you think about how long this period is. We know that puberty is starting earlier every single year. That affects development. And we know that thinking begins to change. They're influenced by more than just their family. Now they're influenced by peers. They're influenced by their friends, by cliques, school. Everything starts to affect an adolescent, and everybody develops in this transitional period at a different rate. You can't lump all 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds in the same basket and think this is what they all do. I have talked to many 15 and 16-year-olds. I have dual enrollment in my classes. They're coming out of the high schools. They're very mature for their age, but they will turn around and say that my friend acts like a 9-year-old. And you can have, individuals who are 20 and 21 who are still developing in a mature manner. So hormonal areas start to change. The brain, again, is starting to change. When you're in adolescence, that frontal lobe is still developing, it's still maturing. Adolescents will make mistakes. Emotional development is changing because moral development is coming in, and it's starting to solidify. And they're learning, what they need to do to be an adult. So we even break it down from adolescents to young adults, which you're starting to read and what you're getting into, as an emerging adult. We're going to give you more time to practice. So even from 19 to 25, when most individuals are in school and they're figuring out what they want to be and what they want to do, they're still emerging into adulthood. So you can see with adolescence, it is a huge transitional period. And it's a social construct that we made up. We made up adolescence. A professor, G. Stanley Hall, said, you know what? Kids need more education. It was the turn of the 20th century. That is before child labor laws and rules about kids working in the workforce. We needed more time, and so we have adolescence. And so all of this prepares you for entering adulthood. So from early childhood, you're learning your language, and you're learning how to be a child. You're learning your interests to middle to late childhood, where you're getting into activities, you're making friends, education comes in. It's such a big deal. Please read to your kids. And then adolescence is learning all that stuff you did from the time you were 3 all the way up to 12. Now you're going to take all that and you're going to transition in all those years into adulthood, and you get that 19 to 25 into emerging. So just some things to think about. I know that some of you had, when you in your discussion question, had said that you were pre-professionals, and if you're going into the medical field, you'll be surprised at how many questions you get asked. I have friends who are nurses, and they get questions asked at every single lifespan stage. So you never know. And again, the best way to think about it is just to compartmentalize it by stages and even by ages. So I hope that helps out just a little bit. Again, we just have a few weeks out. You're starting to get into the adult stages now, even into my stage eventually, which is middle adult. Think about your parents and the changes they're going through, all the way to late adult in the next couple of weeks. So I have extended that quiz date. Please make sure you take it. I don't want you guys to get behind. I have opened up the last critical thinking exercise. And again, you guys have my phone number. I'm usually home on the weekends. Please text me if you have any questions, if you have anything you want to go over. I'll be glad to help you out. I've been teaching this a long time, and I want you guys to be successful in this class. All right, so let me know and have a great week. Bye.